Welcome to I'd Print That. This is Andrew.
This is Joe. What did you do this week, Andrew?
I printed a few things. I was very busy with life in general, so I only printed a couple things. I did print Joe's new wallet. He finally found his wallet. The quest for wallets has been completed.
Well, the quest for wallets was completed by me actually taking a thing and remixing it and sending it to Andrew, and he used his DaVinci and printed a nice glowing blue PLA. Turned out very nice.
Yes, I did. But I did print it in ABS.
Oh, yes.
We printed it in ABS because the ABS is a little sturdier. The PLA has a very high tendency to crack and break just from daily use. The filament I used was YS. We spoke about it in the last week's podcast. It's a glow blue ABS, as Joe said. A very vibrant glow to it. Joe said he put a light on it for a very short amount of time, and then it glowed all night.
Yeah, it was about 10 minutes under one of the compact fluorescent bulbs, and that thing glowed very brilliantly. It lasted, like I said, when I woke up at about 4 in the morning, that thing was still going. So it was a nice, strong glow on it. If you can do things outdoorsy and actually get some natural sunlight on that thing, I think that would be great for walkways or other things.
Definitely. You know what would be really cool is to do like an inlay on a table.
Yeah.
Like an outside table for your patio. What would be really neat is you can take and 3D scan natural holes and pits in like a living piece of wood. Print it, lay it out, epoxy the top, then you'd have little glowing flecks in your table.
You can even route out some lines, and then you can just take your calipers, measure those lines out, and then print your pieces. It's unlimited the things you can do with that. It'd be really cool too.
The beauty of 3D printing. It's
Indeed.
Awesome.
Yep.
Also, I started printing the Pocket Tactics set, the base set. Pocket Tactics is created by a guy by the name of Dutch Mogul. He's on Thingiverse. He's printed many renditions of Pocket Tactics and Pocket Dungeons. So I started printing my little mini army. It's a tabletop game, dice-based. And actually, we plan on trying to play with some people from work.
Yeah, we've got to get a few armies set up, get some tiles printed out, and just give it a shot, see how it goes. Yeah. I've got at least one guy at the office who's interested, and I'm sure that we can get a couple more of the support geeks to join us.
Definitely. That was about it for me, though. Like I said, I was very busy this week with other things and not a lot of time to print. What about you, Joe? What did you print this week?
I actually printed quite a few things. As you know, I was having some issues with adhesion on my little M3G, so I contacted Riley, who we talked about last week, and kind of ran through some things with him, let him know that I was kind of at my rope's end for trying to get this resolved. In the process of waiting for him to get back with me, I wound up tearing my print head apart, cleaned out the nozzle, did a really, really thorough job. Took a physical level, leveled my bed, made sure there was no warping or anything like that. By the time he got back to me, the suggestion was, after I asked him what software revision he was using and what he recommended, it was his recommendation I upgrade to the 1.4 software, which, their actual releases that they have listed in their download section is up to 1.3.6.6.
Yeah, the non-beta versions, right?
Right, yeah. The non-beta, but it's all in beta, which is kind of bizarre to me, because when you open up the software, it says beta edition. So, but I guess it's the company beta 1.4.0.6 that I am using. Upgraded my firmware, wound up recalibrating the bed, did a print, and it actually is pretty nice. There were some definite interface changes, I think for the better. A lot of the advanced spooler features are now actually within the settings menu. You don't have to go into the settings menu and then to the expert mode to get to this stuff. It's all right there. It's right at your fingertips. So since that fix that I had done, that was Wednesday night, I believe, I've printed a little Ulti Trooper. It's a little Ultimaker bot with a Stormtrooper helmet, a low poly toothless, I've also printed a little guy that hangs from your monitor for my wife. So I just kind of snuck into her room one day after it was printed, hung it on her monitor, so when she sat down, she'd see this little guy just kind of dangling there. It's kind of a cute little thing.
Mm-hmm. And one thing we do want to mention, when we say spooler, M3D, what they call their spooler is just their advanced options.
Right.
And that's where you correct your backlash, which if you check out the site, I'dprintthat.com, Joe and I have come up with a very simple and very descriptive write-up on how to correct that backlash. Last night I upgraded my M3D as well. I haven't tried it out the prints. Mostly I just checked out the changes Joe was speaking about to see how I liked it. Looks pretty good, looks promising, looks like it's going to be a lot easier to use for an end user that's just getting their feet wet into 3D printing.
It was definitely a little bit more informative than their last version also.
Yeah, because, I mean, without knowledge, and there wasn't a lot of description on their site, or even the M3D fans, which is a little forum that you can go on to, and people are posting fixes, problems, everything they're having with the M3D, good and bad. There wasn't a lot of information on their spooler. And even on a Windows machine, when you clicked expert mode, it popped up in a window, and it actually was small enough when it popped up, it hid behind M3D software, so you couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's one thing that I had to explain in the tutorial, is that when you clicked on that spooler, it would tick the box, but you'd actually have to take and drag the main window over to the right or left just a little bit to see that window that popped up behind it.
Yeah, when I first started playing with my M3D, the only reason I noticed it was because I saw it in the taskbar. I saw it pop.
Yep.
And in Windows 10, if you hover over a program, it'll give you a little preview window of what it is. And it's like, oh, well, there that is. Now I can finally actually play with it. And that's how the reason I did it was because I used the standalone version of Cura to slice my prints for the M3D. It's a little more stable. I like the infill, the print speeds, travel speeds, and you can edit your retraction, which in PLA is quite a nice thing to do, because if your retraction is low and you're not using enough, you'll get a lot of strings in a PLA print.
Yeah.
Along with temp settings, a lot of the times if you up your temps a little bit, it'll eliminate some of your stringing. And stringing, when I say that, is say you're printing something with ears like Joe's Toothless. From a dragon, was it a Dragon's Tale?
How to Train Your Dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon, that's it. I swear I pay attention to my kids. Anyhow, between his ears, so it'll print on his ear, it'll skip the void in between, and it'll start printing on the other ear. Well, what happens is it'll get a string, just a little piece of filament.
Looks like a hair, almost.
Looks like a little hair. That'll just continue, and it'll actually bridge the gap, and it'll touch, and they'll stick there on the print. One very, very fast way, if you have a print that's just, it doesn't need to be that detailed, you can take a lighter actually and very lightly just brush it right over the print, and it'll take care of all of those strings.
Don't hover.
Don't hover.
It's just a quick swipe with it.
Yep, and that'll. The strings are small enough; they'll just dissipate. They don't even melt onto the print. And granted, if you printed a full statue of something and the entire legs were all of those, yes, it would glob onto the legs, and that wouldn't be good. But for the most part, you can just clip them off with a hobby knife. All right, so maintenance this week. As Joe said, he had quite the problem with his M3D. And there's another point. The biggest point that Joe and I came together and wanted to do this podcast was people getting discouraged with a print and a printer. It's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. And there's a wealth of knowledge out there for adept people, and not saying anybody's not adept, but if you don't have a mechanical background, if you don't know kind of what you're doing and you're just starting out, it can be very discouraging. You're spending a decent amount of money on a new toy, and you can't get it to work right.
It's like buying a car and having to work on it constantly.
Yeah, and it's no fun. And this is unfortunately part of the downfall, like 3D Systems having their problem and taking their small desktop printers off the market, because people are having problems. They're not stable enough. And there's always a variable. Like printing in ABS. I mean, you have the wrong wind. When I started printing, my printer was in my bedroom. Someone took a shower and I had filament sitting out. I couldn't print with it. It would have bubbles. It would pop. Over extrude, under extrude. It just had problems because it would absorb the moisture in the air. And you don't have that big of a problem with PLA because it generally doesn't absorb that much moisture. It still can. And it's definitely recommended to store your filaments in airtight containers with silicone or desiccant to remove the moisture from the air.
Yep. Yeah,
but
any shipment I get that has any desiccant, that gets stuffed in a little box.
Yes. If you're getting into 3D printing, save all the desiccant you find. Everybody at work is aware of Joe and I printing, and we've both made them very aware. Hey, you get something brand new, and it's got a desiccant or silica gel packet in it, throw it at us, and we take them all.
Yep.
But I digressed, and I kind of got off topic of what I was trying to convey to you guys is there's always a way to fix it. This is an amazing hobby. It has a very bright future. Just try not to get discouraged. There's a wealth of knowledge on the online. Read forums. You can go and try to figure it out yourself. A lot of this, when I started, I had to figure out myself because I didn't know anybody that did it. Nobody around me has that type of knowledge. I figured out a lot on my own. I've come up with my own ways to do things. It's a great hobby. But yeah, next topic, I suppose.
Well, it goes right back to what you're talking about, filaments.
Yes, filaments.
Just the different types of filaments. We've already covered ABS. I mean, ABS is a very strong filament. Mm-hmm. A little bit of a pain to print in, but as far as it goes, if you can get it to print and print well, they're pretty much virtually indestructible for the most part.
Yeah, until I got my M3D Micro, I was exclusively ABS. I love it. I love the ABS, but it definitely has its places. Things that you're going to use. I built a Venturi siphon for my garden that siphons off out of a bucket that I make of compost tea, and it just sucks a little bit out as I water every time the sprinklers come on that I have the drip system in the garden. PLA would work for it, but the problem is if you tried to tighten that down, it would try to crack and break, just because when PLA hardens, it's super hard, but it will crack and break under pressure. And ABS is more apt to bend, just like the threads. And if you're printing threads, because you thread it onto a metal hose fitting,
right?
And it's more apt to be able to tighten down and create an airtight, watertight seal.
And when you print in ABS, your extrusion temperature is going to be higher than it is with the PLA. You're looking at something around 220, 235 centigrade. Mm-hmm. And you definitely want a heated bed, somewhere between 80 and 110 centigrade. The reason why you want the printed bed is as the ABS cools, it warps a little bit. So, like you're saying, you have a breeze or anything like that really messes with the environment around your print while it's printing, it'll fail it. You'll mm-hmm. get a really weird curve in there, and if you're dealing with tolerances that have to be met, it's not going to hold them.
Yeah. And one really bad thing that's with ABS is, and you're not going to know when the print starts. It generally doesn't try to curl or warp until you're well into the print, because by that time the base material of your print has cooled and it's trying to curl up away from the print. And another thing that's really needed on an ABS print is some kind of adhesion outside of a brim or a raft or wave bonding. So I use Elmer's glue, the washable, water-soluble glue. I've found that the Craft Bond glue that I use has been the best. It can be a pain for your print to come off the bed. I use a razor knife to peel my prints off the bed. But again, with ABS, you don't have that problem of you grab a model and you try to just wiggle it off the bed. It's not going to try to break. With PLA, that tends to happen. With my M3D, actually, it happened on the tabletop minis I printed. I kind of grabbed the top of it and just tried to peel it off, and it broke the legs off the base. It happens. PLA is easy to super glue back together.
Yep.
You can also use to join prints in ABS and PLA, or any material for that matter, is like a wood burning soldering iron. Mm-hmm. with a kind of a wider tip on it.
Spade end or a wide tip, yep.
Yeah, and you can melt the two pieces together, and it'll. Another cool way that I found out was take your Dremel and take a little piece of your filament, chuck it up in the Dremel and the collet there, and then you can use friction plastic welding to weld the two seams together. It works out pretty cool. I haven't personally used it. I've watched actually Barnacles use it. I think that's about it. He found out from a forum somewhere, probably an Ultimaker forum, because he's a big fan of the Ultimakers.
Yeah, I got a Dremel outside that I need to give that a try on just to see what it looks like.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a try.
Other than craft glue, you've used in the past hairspray.
Yeah, it'll piss your wife off, but yeah, use hairspray. Don't grab her expensive. I found out what Tresemme is kind of spendy.
Yeah.
And that's what I was using, and it made the room smell good.
But
that's
also, I've seen several people use the Tresemme online. They seem to think that is the best brand.
Aquanet's the other one.
Yep.
That a lot of people recommend. Also, on ABS, you can use Captain tape. I've personally never used it. It's kind of spendy for me to peel off, and glue's easy. That was my maintenance for the week, because I did a deep clean on the Da Vinci. I cleaned up all the failed strings, prints, junk that builds up in the bottom, and I cleaned all the glue off. A good way of on a heated bed I have a borosilicate glass bed with a silicone heater under it, which is what the Da Vinci's come with, and a lot of printers use them. A lot of people are moving to an aluminum heated bed, but I personally like the glass.
That's what the Ultimaker still uses is glass. Too.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's easy to clean. You can use chemicals on it, and it won't hurt it. And when I say chemicals, the only thing generally people use is isopropyl alcohol, like a high 99, 98% alcohol to clean any oils. Touching it can hurt your prints adhering. But yeah, just take a rag, wet it in the sink, and not sopping wet, wring it out a little bit, heat up your bed, throw the rag on there, let it set for 5 minutes, pull the rag off, and then the glue is very soluble, and then you can just take your plastic scraper and sling it up into a pile. It looks like snot, but it cleans off really easy.
There's a nice little steam on it. Yep.
Yeah.
So the other type of material we've talked about, PLA, polylithic acid. Its extrusion temp's a little bit cooler. You're looking at 180 to 220 C. And if you use a heated bed, you don't have to use with PLA. You can go anywhere from 20 to 55 C. Probably don't want to do any more than that, though.
Yeah.
And then you could use Build Tack, Blue Painter's tape.
Highly recommend Build Tack. It's nice stuff. The M3D comes with it, and they sell it pre-cut pieces. You can buy them the accessory pack from them. It's just really nice. The Captain tape and the Blue Painter's tape, you have to be very exact, because if you overlap it all, you have to realize you're dealing with a printer that prints. The M3D can actually go up to 50 micron, which is not really recommended for the printer, and we'll talk about that later. But even that little overlap of the tape is a variable. That's a different height, and your printer head is going to hit that.
Yeah, it's not going to notice that there's a little lip there. You need to be edge to edge, no dips, no raises. To get the best print, you want it absolutely level, and it's expecting that.
And the big reason we say you don't need the heated bed, what happens is ABS contracts. The contraction rate of ABS is much higher than PLA. Just like metal, when it expands and contracts, it grows and shrinks. And plastic does the same thing. But ABS has a much higher rate of contraction as opposed to PLA. PLA is fun for, generally when you print in PLA, it gives it a really nice sheen. ABS generally doesn't. It's generally staged very true to the color that it is on the spool as it is when it's extruded. PLA generally, because it has a lot of corn sugar in it, that's why you get the smell of, a lot of people say waffles. It smells like waffles with syrup on them, or you get a sweet smell in the air because of the corn sugar that's in it when it's made. So let's talk about other filaments. Personally, Joe and I have tried Flexible. The Flexible from M3D on the M3D works well.
I have not tried that one yet. I'm hoping to pick some up soon.
Yeah, it's actually very affordable as far as TPE goes. TPE, Ninja Flex, those are generally fairly spendy per spool. That's another thing that's really, it's kind of taking a leap when you're printing, because you get ABS down, you get PLA down, and of course you're going to want to print something flexible.
Something exotic, something that's, a little different.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's a leap to go out and buy a $40 spool of filament and not knowing if you can even print it. But M3D's little spools, they're $18 a little quarter-kilogram spool, and it's a good way to test out filaments. You're not buying a full 2.2 pounds that, if you possibly can print in it or not, won't be wasted.
Yeah, we got some demo filament from him. That was some little white, kind of white flexible stuff. But
yeah, and that's also the YNS filament I spoke on a little bit. We both had really bad luck with it. We couldn't get it to print. We tried a very varied range of temps.
It just came down to the gear in the extruder won't grab hold of it. It just won't get enough of a grip to push it down through the nozzle.
Yeah, and that's one way the M3Ds differ from the conventional gear-driven extruders, where the conventional style, you have a spring that pushes the gear against the idler wheel that pulls down your filament, and you can change the tension on that by screwing the spring down. M3D is just one size. It'll grab the filament, push it down. It works with their TPE filament, their flexible ruby that they have, which prints beautifully. Love it. I haven't had a problem with it yet. It has a high print temp. It prints out at 255 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's
ABS
higher
temps.
than ABS, because the highest I've ever printed in ABS was 240, and that was just messing about with filaments, trying to help do anything I could to get a little better resolution out of my DaVinci, and heat generally doesn't, because especially if you're trying to print a higher resolution, the problem happens is, and even it happens with the M3Ds, is their expert 50 micron level, which it is completely capable of doing. The problem is active layer cooling, and what active layer cooling is a fan that blows not on the extruder, not on the barrel of the extruder, it blows on the actual print. So what that does is it allows the previous printed layer to cool before you print the next layer on top of it. Now the problem that happens is the extruder's still really hot, and at 50 micron, it's not moving. The Z height is not moving much,
Right.
And it's melting the layer under it, whether it's cooled or not. And you have problems there. You'll get drooping and sagging in your prints. But I've successfully printed one 50 micron print right when I first got it. I tried it out, and for me, it's just not worth the time. It more than doubles your print time.
It really takes a lot of time to print that. The higher the quality, the longer you're going to wait.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want little trinkets, knickknacks, things like that, low is good. I have found that medium is probably the best bang for your buck.
Yeah, and that's what I'm printing my little tabletop minis at, and I was very surprised at the detail that's coming through on those. You can see their belt, and I'm talking of a 15 to 20 millimeter high figure.
The cleric that you printed out was 22 millimeters high, and the shield on their back, you could actually make out the entire shield emblem on it.
Mm-hmm. And they had a little crest emblem on them that you could see in the center, and I was blown away by that. That's really good. A lot of people are turned off of FDM printing because you almost always, unless it's an ABS print, that you can use acetone to smooth, which is a point we'll talk about probably later. That's a little more involved, a little dangerous. Heating up acetone can explode. Acetone's extremely flammable.
Very volatile.
But you can smooth it and work out most of those lines. Unfortunately, at this time, and I can't think of the company at the moment, but there is a company that's selling a product for smoothing PLA prints. They're fairly new. Acetone, unfortunately, to PLA turns it into gum. It makes it all rubbery.
Yeah, it just breaks it down.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, because it's corn sugar. It's literally polylactic acid, rather. Sorry, and it's biodegradable. It has no hazardous. You could chew on it if you wanted to. Don't recommend it, but you can.
Yeah, my dogs seem to like it. They will, if I leave a print laying around, they will sniff it out, and I've seen them run off. I caught them last night stealing the little Ulti Trooper that I printed. I had to get on one of them, and she spit it out right away. But
But it
just
didn't
like
hurt
you little bugger.
So, moving on, TPU, which we've already been talking about. TPU is just the It's thermoplastic polyurethane, and that's the flexibles.
Like you're saying, it prints pretty hot, so this is 240 to 260.
Yeah, and this is not even M3D's. The one I was speaking on earlier was M3D's brand, which they have their own polymer makeup of plastic. Actually, funny enough, Riley, our friend from M3D, is the one that came up with that.
Yeah, it's actually his. I remember talking to him, and he said he was designing a flexible that they could use.
Yep, and it's all his. It's all his makeup. He ordered all the plastic. He did the formulas and made it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool stuff. Generally don't need a heated bed because like the M3D doesn't even have a heated bed. Yep. There is a Kickstarter campaign out there right now that is to add a heated bed and enclose an M3D. The unfortunate part is M3D has, they call it their expert filament, which is ABS, which is actually meant to be printed without a heated bed.
Right.
And they're having it print. I know Riley's told me he's printed a few things in their ABS, but it's hard. My DaVinci is completely enclosed to get rid of drafts, anything like that. And it sits in a closet. And the door gets shut. It's away from people. It's the printer is on a very, very level surface that won't move around when the printer moves. It won't get any random drafts, cold air, warm air, because both will affect it. Its own little biosphere almost that it needs to have. But TPU's cool. I've printed a few things. I printed a little Charmander for my daughter. She's a big Pokemon fan. And I did it with their hollow thick wall setting on the M3D, which allowed it to be really, really flexible and squishy. I recently started vaping. I have a box mod, and I printed an Imperial sleeve. We'll get some pictures up on the site in the image gallery so you can see it. And it's got a little Imperial logo on it, but it's a sleeve that goes around it just to protect it. But it's in the flexible filament. Fits great. I ordered but I got the design from Thingiverse. Just tried it out. I figured, well, why not flexible? It'll actually probably grab the box mod a little better, and it did.
Yeah, you can actually get it, pull it out really easily, and that way you can get it your batteries. It's not a big hard mess.
But we'll definitely anybody that's out there that vapes would like to print one. We'll link the thing number, and we'll put some pictures up of the one I printed.
Yeah, anything we talk about, we will link in the blog. As far as it goes, probably don't need to cover many of the exotics or composites or anything else like that. Most desktop printers won't really handle that stuff.
Not out of the box, no.
No, you'll have to get custom print heads and a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of requirements.
It's fairly in depth. The only other exotic filament I've printed in was wood.
Yes.
And that's another filament from YNS.
Yep.
I printed a small cross necklace for my wife, and it printed well. It smelled like wood when it printed. It's really neat stuff. You can sand it just like wood. I did go to print a large Celtic cross for myself, and it did clog. And another thing is when you get into the wood fills, the metal fills, magnetic, any of those, just because it's PLA impregnated with those bits and pieces, it's very, very abrasive, very hard on nozzles. So if you're going to ever try that, make sure you pick up a couple extra nozzles. I know there's a company, the guy that owns Proto Pasta, I follow him on Instagram, and he was working with a company to reinforce nozzles.
Okay.
So it's less wear resistant, or more wear resistant rather. So other than that, I haven't had a lot. I don't have a machine that's really, really that capable of printing a lot of other things. I've never tried NinjaFlex. I know the DaVinci is not capable of printing any of those with its default hot end, which it still has in it. I plan on putting in a E3D V6 full metal hexagon hot end in it at some point, but at the moment I use it to print the heavy-duty ABS pieces. One thing Joe and I have been working on, I just haven't had the extra material to print it for a while. The mostly printed CNC off of Thingiverse. Very cool design, very cool idea. You change out the tool heads. You can have a laser cutter. You can have a draw knife for cutting vinyl, CNC heads.
3D printing.
You can put a 3D print head on it. The only drawback is because it doesn't have much of a Z height, because it's generally for plunge routing, routing out signs, designs on stuff. And even laser cutting, which you don't, generally with laser cutting, you don't move the Z height, you just refocus the laser.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really cool.
So Here this last week, I had one of our coworkers, Russ, who, by the way, is a graphics designer, has designed I'd print that logo on our website, and he's helped me out with a few things on the site. Just want to give a shout out to him, say thanks, Russ.
Yeah, I think he also helped us with the icons, the clickable icons.
Yeah,
for
the social
Instagram.
media icons. Yeah, there was had to do some change ups. The theme that we used didn't have
Instagram or YouTube?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube didn't have those, so we repurposed a few, and he helped us out by making those little tiny icons. So give him a click.
Yeah.
You know, he'll appreciate it.
Definitely.
But anyway, he sent you and I a link to a thing called Maker Arm.
Yes.
It is a very interesting thing. Check him out at makerarm.com or go to our blog and click on the link. It is a little motorized arm that can do 3D printing, both the extrusion printing and the SLA style printing, which uses
UV light.
UV light or UV laser and a little reservoir of liquid. It will do soldering, it will do cutting, laser burning. You can get it with an option for the 5-watt laser to do actual laser cutting. CNCing. It does a bunch of things. You can do a full desktop fabrication. It auto levels itself. It can print things up to, I think it was 13 inches high.
And like 30 inches wide, because it's not constricted by the box that the printers are generally in. It's an arm that swivels. It's really cool.
Yeah, you can program it using your smartphone to do things. There's a little option where it actually takes fish food and will feed a fish on a schedule.
Goldfish.
It is pretty awesome. And the price on it actually is right about the same price as an Ultimaker.
Yeah, I think, what were they? It's right at $3,000, wasn't it?
When I priced it out, I said, give me everything, the soldering iron, even the 5-watt laser cutter, and it came out to like $2,900. Yeah. It wasn't too terrible. It is a Kickstarter campaign that is over with. It's in pre-order right now, and they expect them to be released here this fall.
Yeah, fall of 2016.
Hopefully, we'll be able to get our hands on one at some point.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
It looks really, really awesome.
But yeah, definitely check out their site. Check out what they're about. We love seeing this innovation into this industry. I mean, that's just literally out of the box. It doesn't have a box. There's no box.
Right, exactly. No boxes at all. It's just a thing. You just pull out a box, you set it there, it auto levels itself, and you send it code, and it does it.
Yeah, check out their release video. I mean, they did some really cool stuff. We've said auto level a few times. One of the coolest things I saw it do is they took a piece of glass and they put it flat on the table, and then they took some books and raised up the other side, and it was 3D printing on that angle. Because it has all of that axis. I think it's a 4-axis arm.
Yeah.
To cock the printer head at that angle and print on it. I mean, that's just amazing. We live in a world where bed leveling is one of the most important things of 3D printing. Just like building a house, the foundation's the most important part.
Right.
And same with 3D printing, a level bed is of the utmost importance. And it just kind of just blows that out of the water, and I love to see this stuff. It's just amazing.
So speaking of cool things that's coming out, Sci-Fi and MakerBot announced a partnership where Sci-Fi will be releasing 3D models of items, props, and stuff from their shows, be releasing those onto Thingiverse that users can log in, download, and print.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome.
Dude,
I can't wait to print stuff from Firefly.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I think right now it's not Firefly that they're doing. It'd be 3D printed objects from their new show, The Expanse, is going to be where they start with. If you go out to our website, click on the link, go to the blog on MakerBot where they announce this, and they actually have images of these items that you can print. It's pretty spectacular that an actual TV network is getting involved in this. It really goes to show that there is interest in 3D printing. Somebody high up is paying attention to this and wanting to do things.
And it's not just the Senate going, oh, 3D printing's bad, because that's happening. It really is. Just saw an article the other day that literally there was people standing there going, "This is bad. We don't need to allow people to do this." A lot of people are saying it's ruining industry. No, it's not. It's people doing the things they want to do.
Right.
But the sci-fi thing is awesome, and it's going to be exclusive to Thingiverse.
Yep.
Not exclusive to where you have to buy them, but you can go create a Thingiverse account, download the stuff. I don't even think you need to make a Thingiverse account.
Nope, just do a search through Thingiverse, and you'll be able to find this stuff. I bet you if you look up The Expanse, you'll be able to find it. It's probably tagged with that.
Oh, yeah, I bet. And they released that at CES,
which just ended.
Yeah, I would have, in Vegas. I would have loved to have been there. Actually, Riley from M3D went there. He was there the entire week through work. Poor kid.
Yeah.
Another cool thing, because I have the DaVinci, I've said a lot of bad about them because the first gen DaVincis had their problems, but you can really make them into a good printer.
Yeah.
A little bit of work.
And CES XYZ announced a bunch of things.
Yeah, they did. And the literal article name is their shotgun approach to 3D printing. And I think it's awesome that they're actually branching out. They're doing more than just a printer. Here's a printer. Here's one with 2 extruders. Here's one that can scan things. They finally listened to everybody because everything on the DaVinci was proprietary in the beginning. As in last week's episode, I said I had to reflash the firmware on mine to a non-XYZ Ware, which is their name. I use Repetier for all my printing. The DaVinci 1.0 Pro, it allows you to use non-proprietary filament. Not really ragging on their filament that bad, but I don't like it. Their quality control on their filament is lacking, to say the least. But they've listened to people, which is awesome. They're not just taking this is what it is, we're gonna spoon feed it to you and you're gonna like it approach.
They're not taking it's our way or the highway type of deal.
Yeah, and they've unlocked it to where you have a lot more control over your machine. You can actually edit the temps through XYZ Ware, which was something you couldn't do through the original. But that's just the Pro. They're dabbling in a lot more things.
They've got a low-cost introductory extrusion machine called the Mini. $269 is what they expect to be released at, and it's kind of like the M3D. It's a very small format printer. You're not going to do large objects. It's little trinkets, but at least get you into the 3D printing field, if you're interested in it. If you want something a little bit bigger, they've got the 1.0 Pro 3-in-1. The 3-in-1 is an interesting thing because not only does it do 3D printed things, but it'll do 3D scanning all within one box. So if you want to replicate something, you can just take an item, drop it in there, it'll scan it and print it. And that's $899
is their list price on those. And they are released. They're available on XYZ's shop. We'll link them in the blog description.
And if you don't need 3D scanning, save yourself $200 and get the 1.0 Pro that doesn't have the scanner. That's just a $200 option.
Yeah. Another one they're coming out with is the DaVinci Junior 2.0, which they had released the DaVinci Junior right around Christmas of this last year. But they added the dual color mixing head on it. Now, that's cool. Think of a dual extruder where you can extrude 2 different colors and make a multicolor thing. This thing actually blends the colors and extrudes them. If you check out their site, we'll also link the site we're looking at right now. They did a write-up on all DaVinci stuff that they did at CES. They have a bunch of prints in front of the little DaVinci 2.0.
The Junior 2.0 Mix is what they call that.
Yep. They're awesome looking. This is just my observation. Because it has that bright sheen on it, this looks like it's printing in PLA.
Yeah, it's what it looks like to me also. It's definitely really vibrant colors. It's a little translucent. It's pretty cool. And it's not two extrusion nozzles. It's one. So it's all doing the mixing within that one print nozzle.
Yeah, it does it in the barrel of the printer. And it's cool stuff. Another one, and this is not related to DaVinci, but I don't know the name of the company. I'll figure it out and we'll link it in the blog. But there's a tricolor mixing extruder that a company released for the Delta Costal style printers. And those are the three-axis gantries that go up and down. But that's just amazing. I don't even know what you do with 3 colors. That's a lot of spools of filament to have on one printer, but it's just cool. I love it. I love that this is taking off.
Back to DaVinci here. They have the Junior 1.0 3-in-1, which is, just like the big 1.0 Pro 3-in-1. It also does 3D scanning and printing and and that's $549. So if you're not looking for a large format printer, if you want something probably a little bit bigger than their Mini, if you want to have the ability to do 3D scanning, this could be a solution for you. If you just want to tinker around, just kind of mess about, you can always get their 3D pen. It's a pen that extrudes 3D material that you can draw in 3 dimensions with. It's not like your 2D drawings with your traditional graphite pencil. You can actually do full 3D on it.
And that's $50.
Yeah.
$50. You can pick that up. I mean, that could almost be a stocking stuffer.
And you can use 3D pens to join models together. So if you have, like Andrew printed a TIE Interceptor that came in 2 halves, and to join those, he glued them. But you can take that 3D pen, slide them together, and take your 3D ink and just run along the seam, and it should bond those together.
Yeah, very cool.
If you're interested in bigger things, they have a UV SLA style laser printer. You have to get, I believe, the curing chamber is separate, so that's a separate cost. But they've got tons and tons of things, for those of you who are wanting something a little bit bigger than a desktop fabrication.
And the SLA printers, we've touched a little bit on them. So what they do is it's 3D printing in reverse. It prints from the top down, which meaning it has a build plate that dips into a reservoir of resin, and it has a UV light that is focused on the exact points of your model. And the use of these is generally not usable parts, but for models of things, because it is a resin and it's constantly dipping and re-wetting the previous layer, you almost see nothing. It's just a 99% exact model. I mean, you could do anything.
Yeah, and they use it for rapid prototyping normally.
Yeah.
It's, you can print out something, they're really fast.
Yeah. The big drawback, as Joe said, you have to cure them. You have to cure them with UV light, and they do break down over time. I mean, even the oils in your hands will break these kind of prints down.
Yep.
But, I mean, you look at this, if you go ahead and check out the link that we're going to put up, they printed a little Eiffel Tower, and I mean, it's the full mesh wireframe of the Eiffel Tower, and it's beautiful. They are a lot more upkeep than an FDM printer. You have to keep these very, very clean. Dust really, really hurts these machines. Dust can hurt a FDM printer as well, but not near as much.
And another thing is, whereas a kilogram of filament you can get for $18, if you go to Amazon or some other online shopping site, you can get inexpensive filament. The liters of liquid for these things can be $100 or more.
Yeah, they're
so
spendy.
The cost of operating one of these things is a lot.
And there's a lot, and not just the Noble 1.0A that XYZ put out. AutoCAD actually released a SLA printer called the Ember. There's lots of them out there. They're really cool.
Another thing that they have announced that they've released, if you have $2,499 and you really are into food,
Or
they
just can't
have, or if you can't cook, correct, they have a 3D food printer. I am curious to see what these things are about. I really wish I could have been at CES to check this.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
Because I think that's kind of cool. I mean, if space travel, you're gonna get 3D printed food. That's pretty much what it was on the Enterprise. Hey, I want Salisbury steak. Zap, there's Salisbury steak. It's probably not going to be as fast as that for a while.
Flavor, we don't know. But we'll see. I mean, even I think it's Domino's that has that little articulated arm that comes out. It spins the dough and it extrudes pizza sauce. This is a tangent.
I have actually seen, vending machines for pizzas. You can get, if you can think of it, there's probably a vending machine for it. But that's a tangent that's unrelated.
Love the Japanese. They always have fun stuff.
Yeah, always great. So if you're new to 3D printing, like we expect a lot of listeners are, a really great site, there's a 3D crash course. It is a free, entertaining video that will take 3D printing from A to Z for novices, like a lot of us.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's free. There will be a link. It's off of the 3dprint.com website. You can even see that they are using a little M3D micro, a
Yeah.
little blue M3D micro within their descriptions.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, this is the information we're trying to bring to you guys. Is not so much, and there will be points when we will talk about very technical parts of 3D printing and our endeavors and what we've done, especially when we get a little more funds and we're able to purchase the big printers we want to grab. But this is great. This is everything you need to know in a video. Very easy to digest. Sit down. Even if you're not into 3D printing and you're listening to this podcast, you found it on SoundCloud, went, wow, that's something I might listen to, and you were bored. Take a look at this stuff. I mean, you may find your new most greatest hobby.
In addition to that, there's a little free PDF that you can download. It's the A to Z of 3D printing.
Yeah, a company called SD3D. Actually, I got a hold of them on Instagram. Just mostly asked if it was okay for us to talk about them here on the podcast, and they were very willing. But very cool. It's a little free PDF. You can download it as an ebook.
Just requires your email address.
Yeah, they'll send you a download link. They're just weeding out the bots. But you can buy it on Amazon for $3.99, and to their subscribers, I believe, on Twitter and Instagram, it's free to just download the book, and you don't even have to be a subscriber to them to get it. It's very handy. It kind of is just going over what we're going over, what kind of filaments there are, what type of printing there is, maintenance on printers, how to set up your printers, in a very there's quite a few things that are omnious for printing, that like we were talking about, a level bed, clean level bed, adhesion, that kind of thing. But two very good ways to find out about what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, they're just quick little things, and it'll definitely get you started. Speaking of getting things started and a little bit of education, let's go over some software.
Yeah, specifically slicers. Now, what a slicer does is, it cuts your prints.
It basically takes your 3D model that you see on the screen and slices it into layers.
Mm-hmm. And they, most of the time, other than Simplify 3D, which allows you to edit your support material, most of the time it generates your support material for you. It notices, I believe you can edit the setting on how much of a degree of overhang there are. And an overhang is where, when you're printing, so say you're printing any kind of model, no model is just a straight up and down print. There's things that come off the top. The little print of the week that we're going to talk about later has little arms off the sides, and you can't just print that out into thin air. It doesn't work that way. You can try, they will fail. But so it'll just print the M3D is a little zigzag that it just builds up, and then when it comes to the point where it's going to print that layer where that part starts, it has a platform for it to build on. Another thing that a slicer does is your infill. Now, infill is when you print a model, they're not all solid. You can print it with low infill, medium infill, and then this is talking in M3D terms. Low, medium, full, I believe is there.
Low, medium, high, and full.
Yeah. So with the M3D, because they use just an adapted version of Cura to do their slicing that's within their software packet, it prints little squares. So rather than it being either open, which you can print,
hollow
with thin or thick walls, with each layer it'll have depending on the thickness or density of the infill you want to do, it'll have squares that'll reinforce the center of the model. Now, a lot of time you're scared to print with low infill because you want your whatever you're printing to be solid and sturdy. The drawback is if you're printing with a lot of high infill is you're going to use a lot of material, because the entire size of that model is going to be infilled. Personally, I use Repetier. I've talked about it a few times, which uses Slicer. It has Cura in it, and another printer or another slicer called Skyforge, which is pretty much the base layer and what every slicer is built off of. They've built onto that. So most of the slicing software is built from the base of Skyforge, which is it's rudimentary. I've used it a couple times. Generally, a big fan of Cura and Slicer, and that's SLIC3R is the way it's spelled. But the other thing they do, they export all that file and gives the, so to say, geographic location on your print bed. it sends it in G code, which is alphanumeric, and it's an X and Y coordinate for your bed.
And also start and stop coordinate for the print head.
Yep. And it also takes care of temperatures, fan speed, bed temperatures, takes care of your nozzle print, your heater temperature, and your print bed temperature. And that's what all printers talk in. They use G code.
Now, we made a comment, a couple of slicers. Not all slicing software is the same. Some are better than others. The M3D Micro, it is a very, very basic slicing software. If you want something a little more advanced, there's Cura, and kind of the granddad of all slicing software you're going to pay for. But it is definitely worth the price from everything that I've read. It's about $150.
Yeah, Simplify 3D. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Personally, I've never used it, and Joe hasn't either. But I've heard a lot of people having trouble with prints. They'll slice it in Simplify, and where the print was failing before with any other slicer program, which I'd also like to touch on, no two slicers will slice the same model the same.
Right.
Where Simplify 3D, a lot of the times it'll fix the meshes of the printer and fix all the faces to where it's a what they call manifold, watertight print. It will not fail, as I said before. As before they were failing, a lot of people are throwing them in Simplify, and they're printing fine. You can also add your own support material and where you want it to print. Now, and that's not to say, yes, the granddaddy, yes, it's really good software from what I've read and heard and seen, but I've had prints that failed in Cura but worked in Slicer. Not exactly sure why. It's
right.
Like coding. It worked this time, it broke this time, nobody knows why. But sometimes that they deal with the model differently, and it works out in the different programs.
Right. And there's plenty of free software out there. Not every software supports all printers, so there is times you'll have to go in and do some custom settings to get your printer to work, or like with using Cura with your M3D, you've got to go into Cura, add a profile for your printer that gives it its X dimensions, Y dimensions, and Z dimensions, and then you put your model into Cura, save the G code, and then take that G code and insert it into the M3D software. Mm-hmm. So it's not you can't just directly load up Cura, put in an object, import an STL file, and then say, print to my M3D, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and you upload that via the spooler, the expert option of M3D software.
Yeah, I'll have to find out where that is. I think that's just in the settings now. I think there's a little box for load G code.
File.
Yeah,
very cool. So
I think now we talk print of the week, and we're down to that point.
And we talked about it in the last week's recording, and we said, Joe and I decided that since it's new, most of it was intro, trying to do that and fit it in and edit the podcast, get everything up and running, and trying to do the print of the week was going to be a little cumbersome for us to get done. So now we're going to start it. So every week what we're going to do is we're going to pick a file, and we're not even going to pick it. We're going to randomize it on Yegi. Yegi.com is a source, just like Thingiverse, for 3D models that you can print.
Actually, it's a search engine. What it does is it looks out at Thingiverse, My Mini Factory, I think it goes out to, and there's a couple others. It's just a big search repository. You say, I want to find stormtroopers, and it will search all those sites and give you a listing with links to those models.
Yep, and they have a random. Click random, and it will give you a random page of, I believe, 32.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd number. Yeah, 32 items. But when you click random, you're not just getting 3D printed files. You're getting laser cut files. You're getting CNC files. So we're going to go through those 32. We're going to figure out which ones are 3D printable, and we'll choose one.
Mm-hmm. And when we say we find out which things are 3D printable, one thing that I always do when I pick a file to print, I make sure there's pictures of the person that people have either printed it or the person that made the file printed it.
Right.
I generally don't like to waste filament. Granted, Joe has a box full of wasted prints, failed prints, all kinds of stuff. I started saving it, and then I went, I just don't have boxes big enough for this. But try to make sure someone has successfully printed it, and do a little research on it and make sure it's your machine will print it, so you're not trying to print these impossible prints and being disappointed in your printer because it's not printing the perfect thing. We touched last week on a wallet, the quest for a wallet. Like I said last week, my printer just has an issue, and they can do it. I know they can. There's a guy on YouTube that he's got his DaVincis dialed in. He's very good at it, better than I at the moment. But he printed a print-in-place hinged box that worked, and he printed on a DaVinci 1.0A. With the DaVinci 1.0 and the A, the only difference is they changed the main board on it a little bit, which what they were trying to do is hide the pins that you have to jump to wipe the EEPROM chip to upload firmware, because they figured out people were doing that and they didn't like it. But they also upgraded the hot end a little bit and gave it a little more cooling in the barrel that allowed higher resolution prints. And you can print on a 1.0A, you can print TLA with a little active cooling added. Check him out. We'll link him in the blog. At the moment he's completely escaping me, but he has very detailed how-tos. He does a weekly video called Filament Friday where he picks a print and prints it, tells you why, which is kind of like what we're doing with the print of the week. And what we plan on doing is Joe's going to print it on the M3D.
Yep.
And in the various filaments he has, the various settings he can do, as well as I can on my M3D. And we'll talk on, okay, so it printed in this, it printed at this temp this infill, this resolution. And I'll also do the same on the DaVinci. Say I'll print it in ABS, and I've got some HIPS filament, which is generally used as support material for dual extruding ABS prints, because HIPS is, I can't remember the chemical at the moment, but it's very dissolvable in a chemical that won't dissolve ABS. So you print in ABS as your main model, and you print your support filament in HIPS, where you can throw that in the chemical and it'll only dissolve the support material. Yep. So you don't have the cleanup, and it's a lot cleaner than clipping it off with a pair of pliers. Through Patreon, one of the rewards for the monthly donation is to get not only I'd print that logo 3D printed sent to you, but also if you do the monthly reoccurring donation, it'll be the print of the week. We'll send you the best one we do, probably two of them, probably one from the DaVinci and one from the M3Ds. And probably at 1.3, when Joe picks up his Ultimaker, we'll send you three of them, one from each machine. And for the most part, they're going to be little trinkets. This week's, the random from Yegi, is the Maker Trooper.
Yeah, there's the Ulti Trooper and the Darth Maker. It's 2 items. Told you I printed one at the top of the show. Turned out really nice in glow filament at a high resolution high fill.
And it came out very nice.
Very, very nicely. I plan on following that up with doing the Darth Maker. That's the same little Maker robot, but its head has been replaced with the Darth Vader helmet.
And when we say Maker robot, that is Ultimaker's mascot.
Right.
That you can print. Someone probably took Mesh Mixer or
Tinkercad
or something and
SketchUp something.
Yeah, and added the Stormtrooper head and the Darth Vader helmet to the models. And being the giant Star Wars nerds that we are, when we randomized Yegi, it was unanimous result very fast. So yeah, we're gonna print those out. We will post pictures on the site, probably through Twitter, Instagram, as well as our Facebook page.
Our much neglected Facebook page.
Hey, it's not that neglected. I'm trying. For the most part, that's it. Once again, if you guys like this, we really love what we do, and we love what we're trying to do, but it does cost us a little bit of money. Patreon's a great way to support us if you can. Also, another thing we've done is we have a GoFundMe page.
That's just added, actually.
Yeah, just added this week. And the main goal of the GoFundMe is to buy a new printer that we will showcase on the show. So if you have a little bit of extra money, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot other things that people can donate towards, and we understand that, and there's things that deserve money. But if you have the cash and you'd really like to give to something, like you're just interested in the show, you'd like to hear about it, we would greatly appreciate it.
It also lets us not only, we're not just focused on, printers. There's things that we need. We need a mic boom. We need other little things to help make the show run just a little bit better. So anything helps. We're not after specific high dollar items. If you have just a few bucks and you want to donate it, rest assured that money is being used very wisely, and we're going to do stuff to really get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, your buck, not ours. And always know that the money that is put towards the show will go right back into the show. We will never pocket this money.
No, we don't. We're not looking at buying a house in the Bahamas with what we're getting.
Although it'd be nice.
But it will never happen.
It'll never happen. Forever in Idaho.
Yep. And that'll do it for this week's episode of I'd Print That.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Joe. And remember, if you can imagine it, you can print it.